I was out there alone, and I got picked up by a guy in a truck. He wanted oral sex. And so while I was doing that to him, I felt him put his hands on my head, like he wanted to just crack my neck. He didn't kill me, and I went straight home, and I cried myself to sleep. In human trafficking, sometimes I was forced, then I'd realize, wait a minute, I make all the money here, I'm doing all the work, so then I would change it, and then somebody would, beat me up and trap me in a hotel room for a while, and then, until I could get away from that. And if you're living this life, you want out, there's nothing for you on the other side yet.
Buyers and sellers of other people are just like everyday people that you would meet on the street or who looked a whole lot like your uncle.
I think the biggest challenge we have in addressing this crime is the victims frequently don't want to cooperate. They don't see themselves as victims.
This issue in particular is closer to home than people realize. And it's something that happens in every neighborhood in America.
It's rooted in racism, and it's rooted in poverty and social marginalization.
In San Diego County, we have somewhere between 3,000 and 8,000 victims of sex trafficking every year. Who's pulling the strings? How do we have this in America's finest city?
San Diego ain't what everybody think it is. All they see is SeaWorld and the beach and the glamour and shit, but it's hoods all through San Diego. If you're around everybody that's playing hockey, then pretty sure you're gonna be a hockey player. It's all your environment and where you grow up at, and the environment I grew up in wasn't right. I caught felonies for trafficking, facilitating, and it was stupid because I was just trying to follow what I seen, and I learned the hard way. Instead of listening to who been through it and was telling me, don't do this, don't do that.
I was introduced to the street life at an early age. My father ran out on the family. Next thing you know, I was approached on the drug side and on the pimping side. These girls hoeing on the streets was starting to give me money and stuff. And so I was cool with that, and started going out there, me and my brothers, and we started learning the trade. But eventually got busted selling heroin. Then you start waking up that, maybe there's something else that you need to be doing.
We're probably gonna come down soon just to kind of talk a little bit.
In 2011, the Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to address the human trafficking issues. We don't want to hide it and pretend it doesn't exist when there's an ugly truth there. And this model is really pretty unique. We produced a report that had recommendations and showed a way that we can address it in an evidence-based manner. Once you put things down on paper, that means you've just committed as a whole county to address this.
For the first time, there are numbers to reveal the extent of human sex trafficking in San Diego County.
We're talking about child prostitution and the larger problem of human trafficking. But now, for the first time in San Diego's history, there is a brand new team with a dedicated group of crime fighters trying to stop it.
It was an incredibly complex methodology, and it involved gathering lots of different kinds of data and then trying to piece it all together. Schools had a piece of the puzzle. Victim service providers had a piece of the puzzle. Incarcerated gang members had a piece of the puzzle. Gang members in the community had a piece of the puzzle. And law enforcement records contained a piece of the puzzle as well.
There isn't a neighborhood where there aren't potential recruiters, potential buyers, and unfortunately potential victims.
When we first saw the results of this report, I was shocked. I knew it was a problem, but I didn't realize the magnitude, the amount of money involved. was a real eye-opener for us, and it was valuable in trying to educate the rest of the community. San Diego County has a 60-mile border with Mexico. There's a lot of traffic back and forth across the Mexican border. We partner with our federal and state law enforcement agencies, so we're not duplicating efforts to get these exploiters off the streets and into jail.
Many people ask us about the border, thinking that sex trafficking must be high in San Diego because of the border. Well, 80% of the victims that we identified were domestic.
I think that is something that folks are still struggling with. Human trafficking is very much seen as a problem for other people from other places, but the majority here are domestically trafficked.
Human trafficking, whether we're willing to acknowledge it or not, doesn't mean that it's not there. It's here. This particular girl I had known for a long time was a 21-year-old pregnant prostitute. And my parents ended up adopting her baby, and that's how she became my sister. It all of a sudden became, very personal. And I wanted to know how it was happening and who was doing it. And what I learned was that there are stories attached to all the different roles and responsibilities that we see in the trafficking process.
A really significant finding is that this is not a black gang or African American gang thing. The pimps or the traffickers come from all different ethnic groups. And that's a really important finding because law enforcement tends to focus narrowly on a particular population, and that is African American pimps.
It's a lose-lose situation for a lot of minorities in this world when it comes to the police. Why not put it on the bottom of the barrel? Somebody that nobody's gonna fight for, nobody don't care about.
We think that probably the majority of facilitators are white based on our data.
The most common recruitment tactic is psychological. More often than not, somebody is friended or boyfriended, and that relationship turns from a friendship into a coercive situation.
The process for me at that time was catching girls that had low self-esteem. They needed something like a father image, a big brother image, or whatever. I always had a loving relationship with mine. We knew that it was a thing that we had to survive.
You want to make him happy, so you do it. And you don't feel like a victim, you feel like he's your partner. We're taking care of each other. That's not the case.
Victims are manipulated into thinking this is a choice they're making in life. Their trauma is so severe. It starts with being molested, child abused, witnessing domestic violence. This exploitation is just another phase of their life where they are just being exploited and manipulated.
When I was 8 years old, my stepdad raped me every day all summer. I thought for many years that I was part of it and that it was my fault. My whole life I've been a victim, and I never really realized that.
What are you drawing? A train.
This is a social phenomenon with roots in marginalized communities that are lacking in services and where the home environment is very bad. So how can we as a society own that?
We're hoping, and we have seen signs, that the research is also making an impact on policy and what policies the city and also the state will implement, what policies law enforcement will change and shift to.
We're just people. We're just people that some of us never even had a chance from the very beginning. We need help.
So we're here. There's no shade. You can see all the people trying to find their families.